Booth with Reed Duke. It is Legacy o'clock here at the Pro Show, and we've got round 3 action lined up for you. Daniel Burcham on the left-hand side of your screen is facing off against Jody Keith. Now, you said earlier, Reed, that Jody's a bit of a specialist.
Yeah, most definitely. He's famous for playing the lands deck, which lands is exactly what it sounds like. It's a deck that's based entirely around lands. He usually plays in the ballpark of 35 or 40 lands, facilitated by cards like Exploration and Life from the Loam. Here you see Jody with a fairly basic but still effective opening of just wastelanding his opponent's land, making sure that the opponent can't get to those 2, 3, 4 mana spells.
Quick question. He did wait till upkeep there. Why did he do that?
Well, that's a great strategy when your opponent has an untapped land, because you sort of make them commit. You make them make the first move. So if Daniel had been planning an end-of-turn instant like a Brainstorm, very common play as well, he would have had to fully decide how he was going to use his Brainstorm before Jody gave him the information of whether or not he was going to use the Wasteland.
Okay.
There's also another niche card in Legacy called Stifle, which could counter the effect of the Wasteland, and if Jody was going to get hit by a Stifle, he's not too happy about that, but at least if he waits till the upkeep, it means Daniel has to spend his mana on his own turn instead of being able to Stifle and then untap ready to go with the 2-drop.
So this format's really easy and simple then, right?
It is
that one decision had all of that writing on it, and that was just, I'll wait till your upkeep to Wasteland.
If you want, Marshall, we could just cut back to the booth and talk for the rest of the 50 minutes about that turn 1 sequence there, but I think
I'm kind of interested in that, to be honest, but oh man, this is going to be a heck of a weekend.
No, that's certainly one of the hallmarks of Legacy, is often the games don't go long in terms of number of turns, but every single decision matters so much and can be so punishing. As one wrong move, you can fall into a trap or face a situation where you're dead in the water pretty quickly. So we got the titles of the decks corrected up there. Daniel Burcham is playing a Stoneforge Mystic mid-range or control deck, which is an archetype that's always been around in Legacy pretty much ever since the printing of Stoneforge Mystic, but it is not one of the most popular strategies right now. But I'm glad we get to see it on camera, as it's a great way to highlight a lot of the cards and the things you can do in Legacy. He's got Umezawa's Jitte in play, which is not particularly effective against lands, because lands is good between punishing fire and Maze of Ith at making sure the opponent can't actually connect in combat with creatures. But one of the cards I'm looking for Daniel Burcham to possibly pair with that Umezawa's Jitte is True Name Nemesis. Let's see if he has it here.
Oh,
it's not True Name Nemesis.
I love that card, Reed.
An equally effective, well, perhaps not equally effective, but very effective nonetheless, 3-drop creature against lands. Leovold, Emissary of Trest, says that players can't draw more than 1 card per turn, but the more relevant ability against lands is that if you or one of your permanents is targeted with an ability, you get to draw cards. That means Wasteland, that means Ghost Quarter, that means Rishadan Port, that means Maze of Ith. And here we go. As soon as I said Jitte, not a very effective card against lands, it connects right away.
Right, so we could see that become a much quicker clock, perhaps shaving a turn off of the clock here. Is this Thespian Stage being activated to copy a Ghost Quarter?
Yeah, that's right, and I think that's more of just Jody didn't have much else to spend his mana on. I don't think we'll see him use Ghost Quarter or the Thespian Stage, for that matter, anytime soon. But to be honest with you, it looks like Jody has kind of an unexciting draw. Lands can be pretty explosive if it has Exploration or Mox Diamond early in the game. But this draw, Jody's just been playing 1 land per turn and not casting any spells so far, so it doesn't look too exciting.
Yeah, what does the end game look like for lands? Let's just say we fast forward and Jody were to win this game here. What would that actually look like? It's
a fine question, Marshall, and one of the things that makes lands so great is it has a lot of different avenues that it can go down. You see probably the hallmark card of the deck there in Dark Depths, and Jody has already assembled the Dark Depths plus Thespian Stage combo, which is a way to create a 20/20 flying indestructible Merit Lage token, which lands can do as early as turn 2 pretty frequently. Looks like Jody has it here on turn 4 if he wants to go for it.
That keeps things nice and simple. 20 ya?
Yep.
It looks like Daniel's going to cash in some Jitte counters here for damage. Going to pile on 4 extra damage, and then he just gets the counters back.
Yeah, and I like that decision because he wants to make sure he unloads damage quickly before his opponent can find Maze of Ith. But also he's left himself at 18 life with 2 counters, which means he can go above 20 life to take 1 hit from that Merit Lage token, which, by the way, here we go.
So is he activating the Thespian stage right now?
Yes, so let me explain how the Dark Depths Thespian stage combo works.
Right.
Dark Depths, legendary land, comes into play with 10 counters, and it says if it ever has 0 counters on it, you sacrifice it to make this 2020 token. Thespian stage is being already a land in play, can copy Dark Depths, and will become a copy that has 0 counters.
Oh! How about Swords of Plowshares? Finish your thought.
So that means the first thing that happens, you have 2 copies of Dark Depths, you have the legend rule, you sacrifice the original copy that has the counters, you don't really care about that copy anymore. Then you're left with a Thespian stage that's now copying Dark Depths but has 0 counters on it, so you get to trigger the ability right away.
Yeah,
because
it just says it, right? It just says whenever this doesn't have it, boom.
Correct.
So then you get the 2020 Merit Lage token.
Yep.
And then your opponent Swords of Plowshares is it.
Well, against many decks in the format, that's a pretty reliable win. You know, Lightning Bolt doesn't deal with it, Fatal Push doesn't deal with it, but Swords to Plowshares and these white mid-range control decks are one of the few archetypes that can answer Merit Lage in a nice, clean way, even in Game 1 here.
Yeah, now the interesting part about that, though, is that Jody did gain 20 life off of that Swords to Plowshares, so it did buy him multiple turns worth of life to try to set up again, maybe make another Merit Lage, maybe find there's another Dark Depths.
Yeah, there you have it. So now we're seeing why probably Jody Keith kept his opening hand was just that he had the combo and potentially even backup iterations of the combo in his opening hand, ready to go. Okay, so here's an attack from Daniel Burcham, and Jody makes Merit Lage, comes to play untapped, ready to block.
There's no real downside to this for Jody, right?
No,
wow, it actually worked.
Yeah, just amazing. So he's got to be happy with that.
Replacement Leovold, so Daniel says that's fine. And Daniel now can survive the first hit from Merit Lage, but certainly not the second.
Yeah, so wow, Jody, he was sort of on a Hail Mary type game plan here.
Yeah.
He had to hope that his opponent didn't have a second copy of Swords to Plowshares or a Snapcaster Mage. And even after he made that nice block, he still probably had to worry that his opponent was going to play a second main phase Jace the Mind Sculptor to bounce the token. Daniel Burcham didn't have any of that stuff. All he can muster is a second copy of Leovold.
Wow. So Jody Keith goes for Life from the Loam. That's going to get dazed. And then the awkward post-dazed land. But doesn't matter. 2020 hits twice, and Jody Keith says, just like I drew it up. Daniel Burcham able to answer the first 2020 indestructible, but not the second one.
You want to know what's amazing about that game, Marshall? Jody Keith cast 1 spell on about turn 7 there, and it got countered. He resolved no spells and won that game, fairly convincingly. That's how the lands deck operates, and one of the strengths is that in a format where many of your opponents are going to have permission spells, Force of Will and Daze, you can operate just fine without resolving any cards, just by the power of all your lands having activated abilities.
That's awesome. Who needs spells?
Not Jody Keith.
Most of the spells in the deck are land specific anyway, right? Searching for other types of lands, getting lands back from the graveyard, making mana via Mox Diamonds, that kind of thing, right?
Correct. So what Jody's going to be really looking for in his opening hand in Game 2 and 3 is Exploration or Gamble. Gamble is a really fun card for the lands deck. It's a 1 red sorcery. Search your library for any card, put it in your hand, and then discard a card at random. So, as the name suggests, it's a bit of a gamble for normal decks that would want to use that because, first of all, you're not generating card advantage. You're actually down 2 for 1 as you're going to lose the gamble out of your hand and the random card that you discard. But perhaps more importantly, you might just discard the card that you searched for and not get the effect that you wanted in the first place. However, for the lands deck, it has a very small number of impactful cards that are exciting to search for, and the most impactful of those is Life from the Loam, which you don't care if you gamble for Life from the Loam and discard it. That's exactly where you need it to be anyway, which is in your graveyard. So turn 1 exploration, turn 1 gamble, even Mox Diamond is a way to jump ahead in mana and start actually taking tempo advantage from every Wasteland, Ghost Quarter, Rishon and Port that you activate. But those are the things that can make the land draws more explosive than we saw in Game 1.
Yeah, the deck is shockingly versatile compared to what you might think it would be, being a deck that's primarily lands and really based around things that lands can do. It has a lot of different game plans to it that can win the game. I mean, we've seen it recur land destruction spells and as well as make 20/20s, and it just has all these really cool lines of play.
Yeah, that's right, Marshall. I talked about the Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo being sort of the hallmark, the most identifiable aspect of the lands deck, but this deck existed long before that combo was ever printed, and it used to be this extremely meticulous, lock you out of the game prison type of deck where you would wasteland every single one of your opponent's lands, recur things with Life from the Loam, grind advantages with cycling lands and Life from the Loam.
What was that, Glacial Chasm?
Glacial Chasm. That's
that.
A very cool card that I hope we get to see on camera later. It's probably not going to be a big part of Jody Keith's game plan in this matchup, but it is very important when you play against something like Mono Red Burn. But Glacial Chasm is a land with a cumulative upkeep of 2 life that says creatures cannot attack you and you can't take damage. So the way it works is normally you couldn't have that in play for too many turns because of the cumulative upkeep, but the lands deck can constantly sacrifice it and rebuy it with Life from the Loam, or potentially even copy it with Thespian Stage for a full lock where it never has to leave itself vulnerable. Okay, you can attack with Glacial Chasm.
All right, looks like we're about ready for game number 2 here. And right away, Noble Hierarch, thank you, Jody Keith, reminds Daniel that we don't do lands in front, at least in the feature match area. Hopefully not anywhere, to be honest. And there's a Mox Diamond. This is a card we did not see last time. Enters the battlefield. Can use to make any color, but he has to discard a land.
So Mox Diamond, just a perfect fit for this deck because you want a high land count to facilitate Mox Diamond. Make sure you can always make your first couple of land drops and have an extra one to discard to the diamond. But also, in a Life from the Loam deck, you can both recoup the card advantage, and you don't really mind if your lands are going to the graveyard since you can get them back later. Aha, so this was a card I was curious if Daniel Burcham was going to sideboard in. It's Meddling Mage. It's has some goods and some bads in this matchup. On the one hand, the lands deck doesn't play that many non-land cards, and they are all very important to the deck's engine. I'm not sure. We'll find out what Daniel named, but Life from the Loam would be a pretty great card, a pretty nice go-to card to name. However, as we saw in Game 1, Jody can do plenty of great things and potentially even win the game without casting any spells. So it's not a foolproof plan, but potentially a good weapon that Daniel Burcham has sideboarded in here.
Also does provide a little bit of a clock going. That's something that he is going to need. Exploration's the play here for Jody.
All right, it was Life from the Loam.
Yeah, good read there. And we'll see what ends up happening.
So Exploration enchantment that allows Jody to play 2 lands per turn. Naturally, super effective in a deck with, about 35 lands and Life from the Loam. There we have a Sword of Fire and Ice for Daniel, which is good for 2 reasons. Number one, if it can actually connect. That's going to unload a lot of damage and draw Daniel into more disruption. Every time sort of a creature equipped with Sword of Fire and Ice deals combat damage to the opponent, you get to shock something and you get to draw an extra card. But another important reason is he can hook that up to his Meddling Mage and protect it against Punishing Fire, making it very, very, very difficult for the lands player to ever remove Meddling Mage and ever cast its key card in Life from the Loam. Wow, look at that. So that was no land drop on Jody's turn.
Man, Exploration looks kind of awkward. Was that a choice, or he can't not have lands? He has 3 cards or something, right?
Okay, I actually did catch a glimpse that he has Dark Depths in his hand, and the reason that he didn't put that on the battlefield is he doesn't want to expose it to the Wasteland on Daniel Burcham's side of the battlefield. So what Jody is waiting for is, well, first of all, it would be really nice if Daniel just decided to tap all his mana and play like a Batter Skull or a Jace the Mind Sculptor. But perhaps more realistically, Jody can find a Wasteland or a Rich Land Port of his own and clear the way before he plays Dark Depths and goes for the combo.
Okay. Yeah, you know, I did read an article by Paulo Vitor da Rosa a couple days ago that said, and I trust this guy, he knows what he's doing. He said that Wasteland does cleanly disrupt Thespian Stage Dark Depths as long as you time it correctly.
Yeah, that's right. So the create a 2020 token, that's a triggered ability. So what you want to do is you allow the lands player to fully do their combo. They copy the Dark Depths, they Legend Rule, sacrifice the original one. Then they're sitting there with the Thespian Stage and a trigger on the stack to sacrifice it and make a 2020 token. If you then Wasteland it, you get to kill both the lands, just like you said, cleanly answer the combo and feel pretty safe.
And of course, Wasteland widely played in Legacy.
So Marshall, here we have gamble in the true sense of the word.
Oh, baby.
Whatever Jody loses here is not coming back due to the Meddling Mage.
Is that a drop of honey?
That is a drop of honey. So,
oh man, he's going old school.
This dynamic always makes me laugh in Legacy when somebody says, "What does that card do?" and the opponent shows it to you to read it, because cards like Drop of Honey. This was printed in what, 1993, 1994.
Yeah.
This card. The Oracle text,
which I will read to you, by the way,
is not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily 100% match what's written on that.
It never matches. Here's what the Oracle text is for Drop of Honey. At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy the creature with the least power. It can't be regenerated. If 2 or more creatures are tied, you choose. When there are no creatures left on the battlefield, sacrifice Drop of Honey.
Okay.
So it basically will just slowly eat away at the board until there's nothing left. There you go. And you see a more modern reprinting of Drop of Honey in white with periphery nodes. And it's basically the same card.
Yep. So one very, very cool thing about Drop of Honey is it does not target, which means it can answer that really troublesome True Name Nemesis.
Oh, sure.
But on this board, it's just going to do its job the old-fashioned way in killing 1 creature per turn, first the Noble Hierarch, then the Meddling Mage. But it's a great way to free up Life from the Loam to allow Jody to cast that if he's able to find it, and the Meddling Mage gets removed from the battlefield.
But now the big hitter here has hit the battlefield. Jace the Mind Sculptor has arrived. Now, how's that going to change things? Because it doesn't matter. Drop of Honey doesn't affect Jace, but Daniel does want to keep that Meddling Mage around, and it doesn't look like that's going to be able to happen unless he can just keep playing enough creatures to outpace the Drop of Honey.
Yeah, Jace really does a lot against this lands deck. The lands player usually makes it a top priority to keep the opponent off of 4 mana so that Jace can't hit the battlefield. But Jace is immune to a lot of the normal countermeasures like this Drop of Honey, like Maze of Ith. It's pretty difficult to kill with Punishing Fire. But Jace, especially after sideboard, can draw Daniel Burcham into all of his disruptive elements, whether it be Graveyard Hate, Wastelands, whatever it might be.
Here's a Thoughtseize now from Daniel Burcham.
And in addition, it has that -1 ability to return a creature to the opponent's hand, which can deal with the 2020 token if it's made at sorcery speed.
Of course. By the way, that's the second Wasteland on the battlefield now for Daniel.
Yep, and you actually see Jody is copying his basic forest with Thespian Stage, which, as unintuitive as it is, it does make the Thespian Stage immune to Wasteland. It copies the super type of the forest as well.
There's a Life from the Loam in hand for Jody Keith. And a crop rotation as well.
So Life from the Loam had been stranded, at least for a few turns there, by the Meddling Mage, but it's going to be unlocked potentially quickly by this drop of honey.
Yeah, if Daniel doesn't have any way to put another creature out to kind of as a sacrificial drop of honey creature, then the Meddling Mage will go away. And remember, Life from the Loam has Dredge, so Jody Keith can get that back from the graveyard if he'd like by kind of sacrificing a draw step, if you will.
Mm-hmm. And interesting that that Daniel took the Life from the Loam rather than the crop rotation. I think what's going on there is just with double Wasteland on the battlefield, he's not too worried about any particular land that Jody might search for with crop rotation.
One line that Chad is pointing out that I find kind of interesting is Daniel does have the option of returning his own Meddling Mage to hand. And remember, if the drop of honey doesn't kill something, it goes away. Like, it doesn't just get to sit there for the rest of the game and any creatures that Daniel plays. So his line of play is either let all my stuff die, get rid of the drop of honey, and then play more creatures, or he can accelerate that by doing that. Now, he's given up a lot, though, right? Not being able to brainstorm, for the turn is a big loss. So he decided it was more valuable to brainstorm.
It is a great point, though, especially because of that clause on drop of honey that it's you have to sacrifice it when there are no creatures on the battlefield, and you actually sacrifice it immediately, not at the end of the turn. So
that's right.
He could have just done that and replayed the Meddling Mage. That's a great play that I didn't see right away. And
well, Chad has our back.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it's so important to just be aware of all the different things you can do with Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, now Daniel's taken a more proactive route here. The crop rotation is actually going to stay in hand for Jody because Surgical Extraction targeted Life from the Loam. And Life from the Loam are now gone. So that, remember when I was mentioning earlier, he can dredge it back at some point. Well, that's no longer true.
Surgical Extraction, a bit of a nightmare card for Lands players. Surgical Extraction is one of the more popular sideboard cards in Legacy, and it's in part because of the strength of this Lands deck and how powerful it is to take away their Life from the Loams. So there you see the drop of honey takes out the Meddling Mage.
Yeah, wow, that is really annoying for Lands, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I mean, because Daniel also had an option, I believe, of just Wastelanding the Dark Depths and then surgically in that. I mean, I know that doesn't solve all of his problems, but that's certainly the most immediate threat he's facing.
So Daniel feels like he can move into win the game mode here. He's taken out the Life from the Loams, and he's sitting very carefully on those double Wastelands to protect himself from the Dark Depths combo, and now he's just going to leverage the power of Jace the Mind Sculptor to probably eventually tick up to Ultimate and exile Jody Keith's library.
Yeah, the good news for Jody is that he put a card on the bottom with that Fate Seal ability, so Jody does have a fresh card, and it looks like he's going to cast Crop Rotation anyway, so that will yield a shuffle. I wonder what a win looks like at this point for Jody. First things first, he needs to work through those Wastelands. There's two on the other side of the battlefield, either of which can disrupt the Dark Depths combo. And Daniel knows that he has not left his shields down on those Wastelands for a single turn.
Yep. So a key dynamic is that Jody is probably going to have to make Merit Lage, at least to score an easy win. I mean, maybe there's some paths of fighting through things the hard way, but that's what I'm viewing as his path to victory here. And he has to do it at instant speed to get in that hit before Jace the Mind Sculptor can -1 and bounce it. So as you mentioned, he's going to be looking to maybe copy his own Wasteland with Thespian Stage and Wasteland his opponent's Wastelands. I mean, it's such a tough way to fight through, though.
Well, he has a Thespian Stage in addition to his other one. He's got an extra, and he has a Wasteland. He could do it.
Yeah, but the dynamic here is you Wasteland your opponent's Wasteland. It's not just going to resolve and be a 1-for-1 trade.
Right.
The opponent's going to Wasteland you back. So you have to trade your two best lands for just one of the opponent's Wastelands.
Ugh. Okay, that does sound like a bit of a chore.
The lands deck can do it, but more easily when Life from the Loam is active and they have a huge resource advantage,
well,
which is not the case here.
Looks like Jody's going to kick off the festivities here, and this is exactly sequence that you just described. Oh, does he have another crop rotation?
Oh, that's very nice here as he's able to sacrifice a land that would
That was
effectively
getting a target, yeah.
be on its way to the graveyard anyway.
Yeah, he could replace a Dark Depths with, say, another one. Right now, he targeted Wasteland of Daniel's. Daniel said, in response, I'll sack that particular Wasteland targeting your Dark Depths. This is getting interesting. Jody's looking at how much mana he'll have left over. If he does, because he's kind of committed to the sequence now. And you can see why. He's facing down True Name Nemesis and Jace the Mind Sculptor at 4 life. Things not looking great for Jody Keith here in game number 2. So he's got to take a little bit of a high variance route, as we'd say. And there it is. It is a crop rotation read, so he can replace this with, well, I don't know what, I mean, maybe another Dark Depths, but there's any number of things that could be relevant here as well.
The pressure's really on. Like you said, he's at 4 life and the Jace at 7, so there's just no way he can fight a long game here, as he's going to be dead in 2 turns in a variety of different ways. So his only way is really to fight through it and combo off here.
By the way, that artwork on Dark Depths, love it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Big frozen spaghetti monster. I'm into that. Okay, so he did get a Dark Depths again, but there's still a Wasteland on the other side for Daniel, so he's going to have to work his way through that.
So I believe one of those Thespian stage is copying a forest, so the players are just being careful to distinguish which one is getting tapped, which one is staying untapped.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the last turn before Jody dies. He's going to have to combo off the end of the turn to win the game. Does not look like he can do it, but
no, there's a Wasteland sitting there, so maybe he just needs,
see.
maybe that's the last thing. Yeah, he just says, all right, I've had enough. And that is going to be Daniel Burcham picking up game number 2, which is lucky for us because it means we get a game number 3.
Yeah, this has been a great match so far. We're getting to see both decks doing their thing. One thing we sort of glossed over in that second game was Jody Keith having a pretty crucial Ancient Grudge to take out Sword of Fire and Ice. So he clearly is respecting the equipment package of the Stoneforge Mystic deck. I think in part because the danger of a True Name Nemesis getting hooked up with an equipment, it just kills too quickly, even through Maze of Ith.
Reed, I have a question.
Sure.
Does it make me a bad person if I kind of want to see Jody Keith just like Life from the Lone back a bunch of Wastelands?
No, that's
a cool. That's okay.
Good, yeah.
All right, sweet.
We're gonna have plenty of fast games this weekend in Legacy, so it's nice to mix in the slow, painful deaths here and there as well.
Okay. I like a variety.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that a little later too, Reed, in the day, about the speed of Legacy. There's some misconceptions about it, but not all of them are based in nonsense. There is some speed here too.
Yeah, the short answer about that is game. There's a huge range of how long and short games of Legacy can be. You have to be prepared for those fast combos that can go off as early as turn 2, sometimes turn 1, but also you settle in sometimes for long wars with Delver Mirrors or Delver against Miracles, anything like that. This is one of the slower matchups that we might see over the course of the weekend. Lands against a fair blue deck, particularly after sideboard when both players are coming prepared to answer what the opponent's doing. Both players quickly keep, and a great start for Jody Keith in turn 1 exploration on the play.
I wouldn't say it's that great. There's no Wasteland.
That's true. No Wasteland. And
that's all I care about, Reed.
Burcham's going to breathe a sigh of relief here. But, oh, man, this is just an amazing hand from Jody Keith. Broke it up a little bit by Thoughtseize here, but that card that's taken away, Trinisphere.
Wow.
Which says no spell can be cast for less than 3 mana for any reason. So that means alternate costs, Force of Will, mana reduction, things like that. Anything you're going to cast, it's going to cost you 3 mana with Trinisphere. And being able to play that on the second turn on the play, that's just a devastating blow against the opponent who's going to be lucky if they get to cast any spells at all.
Wow, Jody's kind of going off now. He finds a Mox Diamond, plays a land to make sure he doesn't get dazed, then plays Life from the Loam to get back the land that he discarded to Mox Diamond, and then plays it because he has Exploration.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
So the only thing that Jody might not be super thrilled with here is he doesn't have any lands in the graveyard, but if he can have a lucky dredge here, he's going to have a big turn, and if not, looks like he's on track to have plenty of time and can just allow his deck to do its thing.
Now this does get a little interesting though, because we see on the battlefield here, Reed, really the boogeyman of the format as it stands currently, Deathrite Shaman, and that can certainly interact with what Jody Keith is doing.
Absolutely. It can start exiling either the lands to produce mana or the Life from the Loam itself if Jody leaves it vulnerable.
Did he find lands? He did find 2 with that dredge.
Yep.
Boy, this is looking good.
So it looks like Jody might be content to allow his Life from Loam to get eaten with Deathrite Shaman. He also has the option to wasteland that Underground Sea and just cross his fingers that Burcham doesn't have another source of black mana.
Well, that's what I would do.
But if he doesn't do that, he can then start copying the wasteland with Thespian Stage. And that's actually a play that I think I like here. He could tap Mox Diamond into 2 Thespian Stage and try to copy his wasteland, and then use the existing wasteland to take out the Underground Sea. He doesn't elect to do that, though.
No, he doesn't. Daniel plays Polluted Delta and then activates his Deathrite Shaman, ostensibly targeting the Life from the Loam with it.
Oh, wow. This is going to be a cool play here. So we have Deathrite Shaman targeting Life from the Loam, and we're going to see Jody Keith grab a Horizon Canopy, draw a card, and return the Life from the Loam to his hand in response to the ability.
At instant speed using lands? Oh, this is nasty.
Amazing play. And you know, something just phenomenally fascinating about this is it's an on-board full information play. Burcham saw Jody Keith's hand, saw the crop rotation with Thoughtseizes, but I cannot blame Daniel Burcham whatsoever. If you are not an intimate expert with the lands deck, this is not a play that's going to be on your radar. And this is a phenomenon that occurs in Legacy much more than in Standard and Modern, where these tricky plays just aren't necessarily on everyone's radar, even people that play the format quite a lot.
And you see how quickly Jody Keith is moving now. He's like, gotcha.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You got him.
It's a gotcha moment, right? These happen especially in more complex formats where you just have to know every little interaction, every little thing. And boy, did he get him here. This is a major setback.
And that, of course, is the reason why Jody's play was much better than my suggested play last turn. I had a sort of a mundane, like, okay, I'm going to get my Life from the Loam eaten, but I'll make the most of it. But Jody says, no, I know how to protect myself from that. I know all the tricks. This is the advantage of playing the same deck for many, many years back to back.
In the meantime, Jody Keith is trying to give me my wish here. He has now wastelanded the Underground Sea. It's gone. The other wasteland's gone. Daniel's going to crack a Misty Rainforest and a Polluted Delta to get 2 non-basics.
And you can see Jody just leaving the Horizon Canopy untapped there to make the same play anytime Daniel Burcham might target the Life from the Loam with Deathrite Shaman. So instead he's going to go after the lands. And getting rid of that wasteland, that's a big deal here.
Now that does still target as well, though, right?
It does, but
there's just no way to interact at instant speed.
Right. I mean, it's the fact that the Life from the Loam has dredge itself that allows Jody to make that tricky play.
Of course.
There's no way for him to save his lands.
He is going to dredge his Life from the Loam during his draw step. And that is a Ghost Quarter. Any searchies? No. Upgraded to Strip Mine.
Yeah.
And here we go. Life from the Loam.
Daniel Burcham with no basic lands in his
He has a land drop to give. I think we're going to see Daniel with no lands left here. But now, Jody is facing down a True Name Nemesis and doesn't have a clock of his own at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. True Name Nemesis is very difficult to interact with, and it's going to kill Jody in 7 turns if he can't do anything. But there's something to do about it. Attack back for 20.
And no wasteland here from Daniel Burcham. Does Jody get to just do his thing here? I guess there's a Swords to Plowshares possibility.
He can choose to go for it, but I don't think he will. I think he's content enough with the play pattern of dredging life from a loam and getting this value every turn that he's not going to rush things. I guess the flip side of that is he could go for the combo, and even in the worst case scenario, he can just rebuy it with life from the loam, though the Deathrite Shaman does complicate that.
Yeah, it's untapped now. All right, he's going to go for life from the loam again. Again, dredge lets you get that card back from your graveyard, but the cost of your draw and milling. What did you see, Reed?
2 Wastelands milled with life from the loam, and remember, because of the
annoying.
exploration, that means that hypothetically Jody could just play 2 Wastelands and take care of Burcham's last 2 remaining lands.
Daniel cracked his fetch, so he must have another true name? Yeah. Oh, it's a Vendilion Click.
Yep, this is in Jody Keith's draw step, and that's a really nice play because it's an alternative way to get rid of life from the loam.
Oh, very nice. Potentially stranding that Wasteland.
Yeah, so that
Ghost
really,
Quarter's still a thing, though.
that really turned the tables because
Yeah.
it shut down Jody Keith's engine and represented a creature that can both increase Burcham's clock or potentially block Merit Lage for 1 turn. So this game, while it looked like it was going to be pretty one-sided, it's now... I still like Jody Keith's position, but there's a lot going for Daniel Burcham as well.
Yeah, this just became a real game. There's a Horizon Canopy now for Keith. He's going to crack it, play a Mox Diamond, discard a Worded Foothills.
That Deathrite Shaman, it's as we see, Jody has been able to work around it to some extent, but for a 1-mana card, it's been just shockingly annoying and persistent.
Extremely annoying. I mean, it's hit on different angles. Wow. Yeah, that card really is the real deal in Legacy for sure. I mean, you can't even play it in Modern.
Right, and we've only been focusing on what it's doing to Jody's graveyard, but let's not forget that it's also giving Daniel Burcham extra mana. That's what's allowed the True Name Nemesis and the Vendilion Click to hit the battlefield in the first place.
It's a big deal. Who knew?
Banned in Modern is Deathrite Shaman.
That's right.
Some players have called for banning in Legacy as well.
True Name Nemesis also. These are cards you cannot play.
True Name Nemesis is one of my favorite cards in the format.
Weird. I thought you were a good person this whole time.
No, not when it comes to Legacy.
I love that card too. That card is great. Ooh, here's a gamble.
And look at what Jody did.
He's just going to get a life from the loam, huh?
Intentionally emptied his hand before casting it so that his life from the loam would wind up going straight to the graveyard. He wouldn't have to risk discarding any other cards.
Now, does he... So what's going to happen now, though? Because, Daniel has no more black mana. I see.
So this is a little bit of a gambit here.
Yes. He's going to make Merit Lage now, though. And just say go? Hope you don't have the white mana for Swords of Plowshares?
Well, he does have white mana from Deathrite Shaman.
Right.
But if he does that, that means he can't exile the life from the loam. So Jody putting him to a...
And also he has to have Plow in his hand.
Right.
Right? Like...
And it looks like Daniel Burcham did neither. He's going to probably switch to Plowshares in combat.
Oh, okay. Well, that means...
Well, he also left back the Vendilion Click, so I don't know.
Because you would want to do it now and get that attack in, right?
If he
or not now, but
Plowshares,
on his turn, I meant.
Yeah, you would think that. But as you pointed out, there's no black mana, so exiling the life from loam with Deathrite Shaman wasn't an option.
Right.
But that was
you don't want to spew
really
3 damage.
Bad turn for Burcham. I wonder if he has an instant to cast.
Get rid of that last Wasteland. Make white mana, I assume.
So we saw Jody Keith mill a Punishing Fire with his dredge. That's why he got back those Grove of the Burn Willows. And it may finally be able to take out that Deathrite Shaman, or even better, the Vendilion Click, which was threatening to block. Merit Lage connects.
Yeah, that got a little awkward there. He attacked with it, and Daniel just snap blocked, but Jody was like, well, we're not at blocks yet. And since I know you're going to block now, I'll go ahead and kill that Vendilion Click and then kill you. That's Jody Keith taking things down 2 games to 1. Welcome back to the booth here at GP Seattle. Marshall Sutcliffe. That's Reed Duke. We're happy to have you along for coverage of Legacy. That's right. We're covering Legacy all day today and all day tomorrow. We don't get to put it on camera that often, so this is kind of a special weekend. We're going to have Standard on Sunday as well. We're going to take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more Legacy here from GP Seattle. Don't go anywhere. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, and that's Reed Duke. Welcome along. We're watching Legacy today, and right now we're at the back half of round number 3, which means it's time for Time Walk. Let's head down and see who we've got in our Time Walk match. Now we're going to be starting this on game number 2, and it's Todd Anderson versus Adam Jansen. Ooh, Sneak and Show Mirror, Reed.
Yeah.
Both players trying to cheat in Emrakul's and Grizzlebrands and stuff.
Sure, so a good place to start is explaining how the Sneak and Show deck works.
Yeah.
This is a combo deck, and it's one of the simplest, most direct, and in my opinion, therefore best combo decks in Legacy. The combo pieces are 8 cards that allow you to put giant creatures into play, 4 Show and Tell, 4 Sneak Attack, and 8 giant creatures, 4 Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, and 4 Grizzlebrand.
Nice and simple.
Now, what we have here is a Sneak and Show Mirror, which opens up a lot of very interesting dynamics, because if you're going to combo off and cast Show and Tell, you have to worry that your opponent is going to either match you in terms of what you put in or do something even better. So whatever happened in Game 1, we're now at post-sideboard, and I'm going to be very curious to see if these players have left Show and Tell in their decks or taken it out and are relying entirely on Sneak Attack.
Little brainstorm fight here between our two players. Todd Anderson kicked off the festivities on Jansen's end step by casting a Brainstorm. Jansen has now responded by casting his own copy of Brainstorm. He's even sacrificing a Scalding Tarn after doing so. Maybe he has some interaction. Do you actually... Wow, he's spell piercing a Brainstorm. Is that common? Do you do that?
Sometimes. It depends on the texture of your hand and the texture of the game, but Spell Pierce, what I like to refer to as a soft counter spell. So, in other words, it's nice to just take your spot and counter any relevant card when you can, because you otherwise would risk that card becoming ineffective later in the game.
Whoa, here we go. Show and Tell from Todd Anderson. He kept it in.
Yep.
And he's running it right out there. Both players, oh no, it's Grizzlebrand. Oh, but here's Emrakul for Todd.
No, that's not just an Emrakul, Marshall. That is Omniscience, which is a 10-mana
Oh, I didn't even see the Omniscience.
enchantment that says you can cast spells for free. So that Emrakul was not just put onto the battlefield for 3 mana, but it was cast, giving Todd Anderson an extra turn and allowing him to attack Adam Jansen and annihilate 6 permanents before Jansen gets to untap. So,
Good job, Reed. You got that whole explanation out before this game's just over. Because this one's done.
Adam Jansen can draw 14 cards, but I do not think there's anything he can draw into that's going to allow him to win the game.
Man.
But that
is sick.
That was not a concession there, Marshall. That was Adam Jansen just annihilating his 6 permanents. That was a concession.
Grizzlebrand seals the deal. All right, but now we get game 3. And this is a pretty common opener. Preordain here for Adam Jansen. You know, a huge part of these blue decks are the, you know, we just shorthand and just call them the cantrips. Mm-hmm. But, you know, your Brainstorms and your Preordains, your Ponders, they're everywhere in Legacy. They're just a huge part of what these decks do.
Right, and I talked about Sneak and Show being such a simple, direct deck. You have your 16 combo pieces, you have your mana, couple well-placed counter spells, and the rest of your deck is just card filtering. It's Brainstorm, Ponder, Preordain. So the consistency of this deck is just terrifying for a deck that also has the speed of being able to kill on turn 2.
It can find its pieces. There's no doubt about that.
So while these players are cantripping, are brainstorming and preordaining, I want to talk a little bit about that game too, because it was short and sweet, but there were a lot of really key plays there. And we talked about Adam Jansen just picking his spot with the Spell Pierce, taking out the Brainstorm, but it backfired because Todd Anderson didn't need to resolve that Brainstorm. He had the absolute perfect hand already, and because Adam Jansen burned the Spell Pierce, it allowed Todd to resolve the Show and Tell free and clear.
And he knew that thanks to Omniscience in hand, that even if Adam had a big card, he could just go over the top.
Exactly. The next card I want to talk about is Omniscience, because a big reason why that you see that appear in the deck is for these mirror matches, or the same thing would be true when you play against something like Reanimator. Mm-hmm. But in the matchups where Show and Tell for a big creature is not necessarily good enough, you need something that gives you that extra punch, and Omniscience does allow the Sneak and Show deck to win immediately rather than having to pass the turn.
It's a big cost though, right? I mean, he needed in order to have that sort of over-the-top functionality, he needed both a really powerful creature and the omniscience in his hand. I mean, that's a lot to ask.
It is a lot to ask. The one saving grace is that if you get omniscience into play, it does mean that all of your ponders and brainstorms are potentially lethal cards, because just cycling through your deck until you find one of those 8 big creatures is a great approach. So imagine you have a hand full of brainstorms, but you're a little choked on mana. Once you get that omniscience into play, you do have a pretty high chance of winning, but it is all contextual, and you're right that it would be a complete shame to combo off, put omniscience out there, and then just go. I have all Lotus Petals and basic islands in my hand.
Yeah, and especially restrictive in the sense that you basically couldn't do that if all you had was omniscience, because as we saw, Adam Jansen did get Griselbrand for free. He didn't even have to tap any mana. He's just like, sure, put this into play.
Absolutely. And another point is that if Todd Anderson's creature had been Griselbrand instead of Emrakul, then it would have been counterable, and Adam Jansen could respond by drawing his 14 cards with Griselbrand and maybe find Force of Will.
Wow,
but
so that was actually quite narrow.
The particular combo of Omniscience and Emrakul is just so powerful between the uncounterability and the extra turn trigger of Emrakul.
Wow. Legacy's sweet.
Yeah.
It really is.
And, I mean, just check out what a change of pace this matchup is from the one we just saw with the recurring Life from the Loams, the little Deathrite Shaman dances. This is much more explosive.
And you can see the players kind of working their way through their libraries. Preordain and Brainstorm for Adam Jansen. And a bunch of cantrips now for Anderson, who also has a Lotus Petal. One thing that I find interesting about these blue matchups of all types in Legacy, Reed, is something that you and I talked about a little bit earlier today, which is while there's a preponderance of these cantrips, as we've been calling them, not a lot of raw card draw.
Yes, absolutely true. Legacy, it's pretty difficult to find direct ways of getting a card quantity advantage. You have such powerful ways to select for your cards in Brainstorm, Ponder, Preordain, but all those cards ever do is replace themselves with one card in your hand. So if you do get into long-run situations where total number of resources matter, even having one way to get up a 2-for-1 advantage, even one mulligan, one dead card in your hand, these things matter. And that's how you see a lot of players try to take advantage of the Sneak and Show deck is you say, well, Sneak and Show wants to have a big, giant, uncounterable creature in their hand. So if I can trade effectively enough on a 1-for-1 basis, I can really punish them for having that uncastable card.
Mm-hmm. And now we see how this matchup normally goes in the mirror here, which is that they kind of jockey for position forever, right? Like, neither player wants to be the one to go first without having a really strong sense for the fact that they can do so safely.
Exactly, for two reasons. Number one is you might cast Show and Tell and be on the losing side. You might put in the weaker Show and Tell project, but also you just don't want to play your really important card into possible counterspell, and we know that both these players have Spell Pierce and Flusterstorm in addition to Force of Will in their deck. Potentially Red Elemental Blast as well.
Mm-hmm.
I see that actually Adam Jansen has Red Elemental Blast, but Todd Anderson does not.
These hands have to start to be looking pretty darn nice. Oh, here we go. Here's Show and Tell from Todd Anderson.
He's got it again, Marshall. He's got the Omniscience Emrakul. So Adam Jansen might be toying with the idea of letting this resolve, but that's a dangerous game to play.
Now, even if Adam has his own copy of those two same cards, Todd still wins that fight, right? Because it's his turn.
Yes.
Like, you could be like, Adam goes, okay, I'll put Omniscience in, but you can't just cast things whenever you want still.
Wow, so, okay, Todd fights the battle, he Force of Wills, but he has to pitch his Omniscience. So that changes the dynamic quite a bit here, and let's see what happens.
Oh, this is going to get interesting, because now both of them could end up with huge creatures on the battlefield and no trigger from Emrakul.
Note that Spell Pierce is not going to win the battle here, but Flusterstorm would.
Spell Pierce would force Todd to sack one of his Lotus Petals, a minor upside. He's going to cast it.
Yep, and another thing to be thinking about here is the possibility of Todd Anderson putting Sneak Attack into play and needing that extra mana.
Okay, how about two Spell Pierces?
That'll do it.
Wow, so Adam Jansen survives that fight and actually comes out relatively ahead on the deal. Todd having to use up most of his resources there.
But it begs the question,
yeah.
Now what?
Now what? Now what does Adam have? Can he fight back? Because it's pretty hard to have that number of counterspells in hand if you're Adam Jansen and still be able to combo off yourself.
And you think about Adam Jansen just spent so many resources to prevent his opponent from resolving show and tell, which is a symmetric effect and an effect that Adam Jansen's deck is designed to produce. So, one of his best plays would be to untap and cast show and tell, but that doesn't make any sense. Why would you counter your opponents and then try to resolve your own? So yeah, the player's just going to settle into this holding pattern of trying to set up again and see who can produce something.
All right, there's Brainstorm now for Anderson, as probably we're going to be looking at both players trying to rebuild their game plan through their hands and try to muster up another swing at the old bat here, or with the old bat here. Let's see if they can do it. Nope, not yet. But the, of course, extremely powerful combination of Brainstorm plus Fetch Land is still in effect, and Todd is now working his way towards that. And here we go, Ponder from Adam. So both players right back to work again in the mines.
We should note the power of Brainstorm in a sort of late game scenario like this, particularly with a deck like Sneak and Show, because you want to make sure you have one of those big payoff cards, but not two. The second one really doesn't do anything besides glut up your hand. So Todd Anderson able to sculpt his hand, shuffle away the cards he doesn't want. Brainstorm just quite powerful. Ponder good too, but that's more about digging into one or two cards that you really want instead of completely resetting or sculpting your hands.
By the way, chat's now rooting for Hardcast Omniscience. a cool 10 mana. I wonder if they even have enough mana sources in their deck to produce 7 blue.
I think it's possible because of those 2 mana lands, like the Ancient Tomb on Adam Jansen's side.
Oh, sure, yeah. A couple petals in there. Ooh, here's Jace the Mind Sculptor for Todd Anderson.
Wow, Marshall, we talked about raw card quantity advantage. There's not that many ways to do it, but Jace the Mind Sculptor, probably the best one in the format. It's also not vulnerable to Flusterstorm, very relevantly here. So Adam Jansen's going to have Force of Will or Red Elemental Blast. Or else he's in big trouble. He's going to have to try to force the action and win on his turn if Jace resolves.
Yeah, and he's going to need something pretty special. Oh, that is a Jace. You have one. And you like Brainstorm. Well, here we go, because Jace is going to start generating massive advantage now for Todd Anderson. And all of a sudden, Jansen's the one who's under the gun. I mean, the pressure's on him.
Yeah, you got to hand it to Todd Anderson being just super well prepared to fight this mirror match between Omniscience and Jace the Mind Sculptor. Multiple ways to win or trump the show and tell plan. We see that Adam Jansen has been the one who's afraid of show and tell resolving in both of these games. That's just a tremendous advantage for Todd Anderson.
Todd, by the way, has triple Force of Will now.
Yeah, this is every Legacy player's dream of having Jace with a handful of permission.
We'll just be here for a while, says Todd. And it looks like Adam might be going for...
What costs 5 mana?
What's it called? Through the Breach.
Through the Breach.
Yeah, there it is. Through the Breach. No way that's resolving. Bye-bye. By the way, do we find that artwork on that Force Will acceptable, Reed?
I'm a big fan of the original artwork. Therese Nielsen, just one of the all-time great Magic artists.
Yeah, she crushes everything.
Yeah, I love my old Alliances.
Okay, now I do too, but you didn't answer my question. This can still be acceptable artwork, even if it's not our favorite.
I tend to cut people slack because of the price of Legacy. I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't want to diss anybody who's been able to construct a deck and enter this tournament. That's already quite a huge accomplishment. So, while it wouldn't be my choice, to each their own. And
by the way, Chad is pointing out that Therese Nielsen actually did this artwork as well.
Is that right?
That's what they're saying.
I did not know that.
Chat wouldn't lie to us, right? Right, Chat?
So, by the way, we've got some fireworks here. Spell Pierce from Todd Anderson is met by Force of Will from Adam Jansen. Now, Force of Will from Todd Anderson met by Flusterstorm, But Todd, of course, gets the last laugh as his whole hand was filled with permission spells, and he's going to get to untap with this Jace.
You know, I'm going to make an executive call, by the way.
Go ahead.
Acceptable.
Great.
Therese Nielsen on both artworks. We're good to go. This is a disaster for Jansen, right? He went for it. He's now emptied out his hand. And by the way, you don't need to answer me because, yes, this is a disaster for Adam Jansen because that's Emrakul to finish off the match as Adam Jansen's at 14 life, can't even take the one hit. And that's going to do it. So the Sneak and Show mirror, a lot of fireworks there. You see the players build up their hands for that big moment, and then boom, everything goes off. And that's pretty common. All right, well, we've got a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll have more Legacy here from GP Seattle. We'll see you in just a bit.